Hi everyone, thank you all so much for joining my talk today on getting a job in conversational AI. I really hope you're enjoying the event so far. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking alongside some amazing people in this space. So let's get straight into it. So my name is Alice. I'm a conversational AI recruiter and co-founder here at Techire AI. Techire AI is a tech recruitment agency who specialize in all things conversational AI. We work with companies researching, building, and designing chatbots, voice bots, speech technologies, NLP, and NLU engines. So here are some of the things we're going to cover in today's session. We're going to talk a little bit about some common job titles, what skills and qualifications companies tend to look for, salaries, and also some tips on how to make you stand out in the industry. So before we begin, why even consider getting into conversational AI? Well, here's one good reason. In a recent report published by MarketWatch, they found that the Europe region accounts for the second largest market share in the global conversational AI market. This is due to the increase in adoption of intelligent virtual assistants in countries such as UK, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, and other European countries. So Europe is certainly a hotspot for specialist conversational AI talent, and it's important for people to know who are interested in getting into this space. Another great reason to get into conversational AI is that in a report released recently by Cognizant, they estimated that the global chatbot market is expected to reach $1.3 billion by 2025. Again, this means huge potential and opportunities for people that are interested in getting into this domain, or maybe that already are in this domain and looking to switch roles. So when it comes to job titles and roles, they certainly vary a lot from company to company, and this can be really confusing for people that are either in the industry or new to the industry. So over time, as the industry progresses, we'll start to see more defined roles, and we are already seeing this quite a lot with conversation design. But for the purposes of this talk, we're going to focus on development and design mainly. So when it comes to development, it's usually more straightforward. Most companies tend to hire software developers and then train them internally on the specifics of chat or voice development. However, some companies will look to hire specialist chatbot or voice developers, and we're seeing more of these opportunities arise, especially if they don't have the capabilities to train them internally, for example. So typically you may see jobs such as chatbot or voice developer, or even conversational AI architect, which we're seeing a lot more of recently. On the design side, the most common jobs you'll come across will usually be conversation design. So this is usually working across both chat and voice. However, some companies may only focus on one, for example, just voice. So in this scenario, the job titles are usually voice designer, voice user interface designer, or VUI designer. I have, however, come across many different job titles, including interaction designer, bot designer, or even just copywriter. However, the job spec and requirements are usually very similar, if not the same. So again, this is sort of where the confusion can come from. So a quick fact for you, the conversational AI industry is currently seeing a talent shortage of 65%. So this is a huge number of skills that are lacking in the industry, meaning it's certainly not an overcrowded space to enter. And if you have any experience in this space, then your skills could be considered very sought after by companies that are looking to hire. So one thing I get asked a lot about is what types of experience and tools do companies actually look for? So with the industry still not having any set back practices, this means skills required by employers can vary quite a lot from company to company. So for example, some companies may prefer experience with particular tools such as Dialogflow, as this may be what they perhaps use internally. However, other employers may be more flexible on this. As long as you have experience with one platform, they usually think that you can pick up others fairly easily, as they're pretty similar in ways. Again, this depends on the type of role. For example, the more senior the role, the more they would expect you to have good knowledge across a variety of platforms and tools rather than maybe one specific. We're also seeing more companies build their own proprietary platforms as well. So this means that they would look for more transferable skills or existing knowledge of platforms on the market rather than any specifics. There are many, many different platforms out there, but these are some of the main platforms we see companies looking for when they're hiring. So this is across Dialogflow, Microsoft Bot Framework, IBM Watson, Amazon Lex, Rasa, and also if I've included NLP here. So if, for example, developers were looking to get more specific into NLP, these are the sort of common tech stack that companies will tend to look for. Most job adverts will mention industry experience as a requirement, but this can be quite disheartening for people that are maybe new to the industry. So I would recommend doing a course related to conversational AI so that you have an understanding of the basics and what's involved just to get you sort of started. And a quick top tip here, if you're applying for a job and you know which tools a company uses, but maybe you don't have any specific experience with those tools, then why not do some research? So you can check them out, have a play around with them and become more familiar with those tools. If you don't have that specific experience, but you've shown initiative and willingness to learn, this can go a long way. So for example, if you get to interview stage and they're asking you questions about your experience with a certain tool, you can be quite open and say, you know, I don't have commercial experience with using this tool, but I have looked into it and this is my thoughts and this is what I've done. And that would go a long, long way. So remember, it's not always what about you already know, more about sort of your attitude and willingness to learn. So if you follow any of my content, you would have heard me say this before, that soft skills are so, so important, especially if you're entering a brand new industry. And even more so when an industry like conversational AI has no defined best practices. We really rely more on soft or transferable skills. And here are some of the main soft skills employers will typically look for. It's not an extensive list, but some of the key ones that we especially find with our clients. So creativity, for example, is super important. No two conversations are the same. So you really need to be able to think outside of the box and get creative with the brief. So that would be relevant to both the design and development aspect. Adaptability is also a really important one. So being able to adapt to different scenarios. For example, you may join a company who maybe works across a variety of sectors and maybe has a mix of small to large clients. So this means that the project scope is going to vary drastically from each one. Again, very relevant to both development and design. Collaboration is also a big one. So when working across multifunctional teams. And also, I would mention as well that entering a new industry isn't for the faint-hearted. So you really need to believe in yourself and make sure, you know, you believe in what you're looking to achieve and what you're contributing to so that you can really succeed in that space. So when hiring, companies don't necessarily require qualifications that are specifically related to conversational AI. Why is this? Because again, it comes back to industry sort of standards and where the industry is at the moment. But this isn't to say that this will always be the case, especially going forward as the industry develops over time. So if you're a developer, perhaps looking for a chatbot developer role, of course, most employers will expect some sort of computing degree or qualification. Again, it's not really too specific, but that's typically what they would look for. However, they may look for someone that has commercial experience within a similar role as well. If you don't have commercial experience, you could have a go at developing your own bot so that you can explain and show the process you followed and the information along the way that you learn. If you're looking to apply for NLP engineering roles, for example, then typically employers may expect a qualification within NLP or a general sort of computing qualification with some commercial experience already within NLP. Now, on the design side, it's a little less simple and it will vary from company to company. Some companies like UX UI qualifications, whereas others may look for qualifications related to linguistics or copywriting. But the truth is, there's no clear pathway into conversation design. So if you've got some of those soft or transferable skills and have a keen interest in the space, then there's no reason why you can't make a career out of it. So in light of all of this, companies are usually pretty open-minded when it comes to specific qualifications. There are, however, conversation design specific courses out there or development courses, and they are pretty credible. So on the design side, for example, one would be the Conversation Design Institute, so you can check them out. But whilst it's not always a requirement on most job ads, this certainly will make your profile more credible and should give you a chance or a stronger chance of being in the running for an opportunity. So it's not an absolute must, but there are courses out there and available, and we're seeing more and more of them pop up. So definitely check them out. So in a report published by Get VoIP, focused on chatbot adoption, they asked a bunch of people what their main concerns were when dealing with a bot for customer service queries. The figures are pretty high, with concerns across complex issues and not providing a personal experience. So why is this relevant, you may be thinking? Companies developing these bots need to invest in these capabilities. So this means state-of-the-art NLP, specialist conversation designers, and even introducing empathy and emotional intelligence into their tech. So this is where you can come in and really get to learn those specialist skills and contribute to bring those stats down. Okay, so salaries within conversational AI is probably one of the biggest struggles I see for people in the space, and one thing that I get asked a lot of. And this is mainly just down to the lack of data out there. Many things can vary the salary rates from location to specific skills or years of experience. And of course, over time, we'll begin to collate more and more data, which will result in average market rates in terms of what we see now for other roles in other industries. But to try and help, I've put together two scenarios. One is a chatbot developer and one is a conversation designer. Both are based in Western Europe, and I've listed the specific skills and their salaries so that you can see how their salary is being benchmarked against their type of profile. Again, there's going to be a few different factors in here in terms of the type of company, what the wider package is, but hopefully this gives you a fair idea in terms of how they're benchmarked. So I'll leave them on the screen for you just to have a little look at. And so whether you're new to the industry or not, there are many things you can do to increase your chances of getting hired in this space. So I'll just run through a couple. So making sure your CV is tailored to each job you apply for is really important. Generic CVs are a big no-no, especially if you're looking to really stand out and get noticed. If you're looking for a role within conversation design, having a portfolio isn't a must, but trust me, it will certainly help. I've shared more details or detailed tips on how to best structure your CV and the do's and don'ts of a conversation design portfolio, which you can check out on my LinkedIn, and you should be able to get some good tips on there. Make sure you're active on LinkedIn and that your profile is relevant and up to date. It's super important, especially when it comes to companies checking you out and maybe even from a networking point of view as well. Also look at different courses. So I did mention one earlier, but there are many different ones across chatbots, voice, and conversation design. Also, research in the industry is very important. So have a look at different platforms out there. Use chatbots or voice tech and see what you like and maybe what you would do differently. So maybe jump on a few chatbots, have a few chats and see how they operate, and what you would do to make them better. Also, this is a good way for you to get comfortable with the lingo used in the industry. So getting used to what intense means, entities and utterances. So perhaps when you're having conversations with companies about roles or maybe interviews, that you have a basic understanding and this isn't all sort of fresh and new to you. And how about even having a go at your own personal project? Playing around with Dialogflow or maybe Alexa Skills Kit and develop and design your own application. The great thing about it is that most platforms out there don't actually require any technical abilities. So, you could just hop on and start designing and building your own application. And this is just a really good way for you to see firsthand how it all works, and you'll start to piece things together and start to get your head around it a lot more. And finally, but very important, is to network. So speak to people, attend webinars, make yourself known, and get amongst the community. There are so many people that share amazing insights and also content and are willing to have conversations. So I would really recommend to make the most of it, because that's really important, to be able to digest all of that information. Some of my personal favorites are voicebot.ai and also VUX World. So they both share some really great content. And if you're new to this space, one little tip is that it can require a little patience. But if you can sort of nail all of these things, you'll have a much stronger chance of getting a job in conversational AI. So we've reached the end. Thank you all so much for watching, and I really hope this talk was useful in one way or another. I'm now going to be answering some questions from the audience, so feel free to send them over now. Thank you so much.